What was the name again?
Phillips.
Phillips.
Cheers, the tragic fates behind America's funniest bar. You remember the bar. The warm glow. The laughter. The theme song that hit you right in the soul. Where everybody knows your name. For 11 seasons, Cheers was America's happiest place. A Boston bar that never closed. A place where heartbreaks were healed with beer, sarcasm was a love language, and nobody ever truly left, not even when they walked out the door. But the actors? They left. Some too soon. Some without warning. Some after giving everything they had, and still dying with unfinished stories. This isn't just a nostalgia trip. It's a reckoning. Because behind the laughter, the Emmy Awards, and the record-breaking finale, Cheers was built on real people, complex, flawed, brilliant people, many of whom are no longer with us. Nicholas Colasanto was the soul of the show in its earliest years, until his body gave out, and his death was quietly written into a world that had no room for grief. Kirstie Alley came in like a firestorm, revived the series in its second act, won awards, and then became tabloid fodder for her political views and tragic end. Jay Thomas was killed off not because his character ran its course, but because of a single offhand insult that cost him his job, his momentum, and, some say, his dignity. Rees charmed as Rebecca's rich, arrogant boyfriend, then battled a silent killer no one saw coming. In this video, we're not just revisiting Cheers. We're lifting the bar stool. We're pulling back the curtain. We're telling the stories behind the smiles, the scripts, the sitcom perfection. Why did Nicholas Colasanto's health decline so rapidly, and why did nobody step in until it was too late? What drove Kirstie Alley to become one of Hollywood's most controversial voices before her sudden cancer diagnosis shocked the world? How did one crude joke cost Jay Thomas everything? And why did Rees, once a Broadway darling, disappear from the spotlight just as his career should have peaked? You've seen the show. You've memorized the theme song. But you haven't heard this story. Stick with us as we revisit Cheers, not just the laughter, but the loss. Not just the punchlines, but the people behind them. Because some bars close quietly. Others close forever when the regulars stop showing up. This is for the ones who never came back. Nicholas Colasanto, the coach who died before the final whistle. He wasn't the sharpest guy in the bar. He didn't get the jokes half the time. But when Coach smiled, that crooked, wide-eyed, innocent grin, the whole room softened. And for 3 seasons, Cheers had a soul. His name was Ernie Pantusso. But to everyone, he was just Coach. Nicholas Colasanto didn't look like a sitcom star. And he wasn't supposed to be one. Born January 19, 1924, in Providence, Rhode Island, Colasanto was a war veteran, a Navy man who returned home from World War II and didn't discover acting until his 30s. He wasn't a natural leading man, but he had one thing that casting directors couldn't ignore: presence. Warm, genuine, unpredictable presence. Before Cheers, he spent years as a TV and film director, working on shows like Bonanza, Chips, and Starsky and Hutch. He was behind the camera, respected, efficient, invisible. But deep down, he wanted to perform. Not to be famous. Just to be someone else for a little while. When Cheers was being cast in 1982, Colasanto was in his late 50s and battling health issues. He had diabetes. He had heart problems. And he drank, more than he should have. But when he walked into the audition room, everyone knew, he was Coach. His version of the character wasn't just funny, it was human. Coach wasn't dumb. He was pure. And in a bar filled with cynicism, he became the emotional gravity. His chemistry with Ted Danson was effortless. His timing? Impeccable. The audience didn't just laugh with Coach, they loved him. But behind that lovable confusion, Nicholas Colasanto was quietly deteriorating. By season 3, his health had taken a visible turn. He struggled with memory. Missed cues. Slurred lines. Cast members noticed. Writers began shortening his screen time, rewriting scenes, pulling him from physically demanding moments. He never complained. Never asked for sympathy. But everyone on set knew, the clock was ticking. In February 1985, just as Cheers was filming the final episodes of Season 3, Colasanto collapsed in his home in Studio City. Heart failure. He was 61 years old. The cast was shattered. No warning. No goodbyes. Just silence. Rather than recast or replace, the producers made a bold, heartbreaking choice. They wrote Coach out of the show. The next season opened with Sam casually mentioning that Coach had died. No dramatics. No funeral. Just life moving forward, as it does, too fast, too cruel. And then came Woody. Woody Harrelson was brought in as the new bartender, a different kind of innocent, but never a replacement. Because you couldn't replace Coach. You couldn't replace Nick. Ted Danson later said Colasanto was the heart of the show, and when he died, Cheers lost a piece of its magic. Even in later seasons, the cast would mention him off-screen. And in the series finale, if you look closely, you'll see a framed photo in Sam's office. It's of Geronimo, Colasanto's favorite spiritual symbol. The crew placed it there as a quiet tribute. No fanfare. Just respect. Nicholas Colasanto didn't live to see how iconic Cheers would become. He didn't collect the Emmys. He didn't make the reunion tours. But for millions of viewers, he was, and always will be, the reason that bar felt real. He didn't die on screen. But he died in the show. And with the show. And if you listen closely, you can still hear Coach asking, "What's the score, Sam?" Kirstie Alley, the queen of the bar who lost herself outside it. When Shelley Long walked out of Cheers in 1987, everyone said it was over. The chemistry between Sam and Diane was the lifeline of the show. No one could fill that void, or so they thought. Then Kirstie Alley walked in. With smoky eyes, razor-sharp wit, and a voice that could slice through Boston fog, she didn't replace Diane. She eradicated her. As Rebecca Howe, Alley wasn't the idealistic intellectual like Diane Chambers. She was corporate. Calculating. A mess in high heels. Her power wasn't in seduction, it was in the unraveling. Over time, Rebecca devolved from a polished bar manager into a neurotic, insecure, lovable wreck. And America ate it up. Kirstie Alley was electric. In 1991, she won the Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series. By the early 90s, she was on magazine covers, hosting Saturday Night Live, and headlining her own sitcoms. She wasn't just part of Cheers, she had rescued it. But behind that laugh was something darker. Born January 12, 1951, in Wichita, Kansas, Kirstie Louise Alley wasn't Hollywood royalty. Her childhood was modest, her rise to fame slow. In 1981, her mother was killed by a drunk driver, a trauma she rarely spoke about publicly, but one that haunted her forever. She started in sci-fi, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, dabbled in dramas, and finally found her stride in comedy. But even at the height of her success, Alley struggled with body image, substance abuse, and toxic Hollywood pressure. After Cheers, her career roller-coastered. She scored hits like Look Who's Talking, and Veronica's Closet, but by the early 2000s, she was more known for her weight than her work. The media shredded her appearance. Paparazzi hounded her. She tried to reclaim her narrative, starring in the reality show Fat Actress, and even launching a weight loss brand, but the public wasn't kind. Then came the controversies. Kirstie Alley became one of Hollywood's most vocal supporters of Scientology. She feuded with former friends. She made political statements that alienated longtime fans. To some, she was fearless. To others, a cautionary tale of fame turned brittle. And then, as quickly as she had burst back into headlines, she disappeared. In December 2022, the world was stunned to learn Alley had died of colon cancer at the age of 71. The announcement came just weeks after her diagnosis, a secret battle, fought quietly. Her death shocked fans, not just because she was gone, but because they never expected her to go out quietly. There were tributes. From co-stars, from fans. Ted Danson said he had just watched a Cheers rerun the same day he learned she died. Her portrayal of Rebecca was both funny and heartbreaking, he said. She made me laugh 30 years ago, and she made me laugh today. Kirstie Alley didn't die a legend. She died misunderstood. Complicated. Fierce. Flawed. Human. And maybe that's what made her right for Cheers all along. Because Rebecca wasn't perfect. She was brilliant. And broken. Just like Kirstie. Jay Thomas, the comedian who laughed his way out of Cheers. If you were around in the late 80s, you probably remember Eddie Lebec, the goofy, French-Canadian hockey player turned Penguin mascot who swept Carla off her feet. He was loud. He was lovable. He was doomed. And so was the man who played him. Jay Thomas wasn't part of the core Cheers cast. He wasn't in the opening credits. But in just a handful of appearances, he left a mark that most guest stars could only dream of. He brought chaos to Carla's life, and comic relief to the show's later seasons. Their chemistry was natural, raunchy, and completely unpredictable. But Jay Thomas had a problem: he didn't know when to shut up. A rising radio personality in Los Angeles, Thomas often used his morning show to riff, rant, and roast everything, including, it turns out, his own job on Cheers. One morning, when a caller asked what it was like working with Rhea Perlman, Carla, Thomas reportedly replied, "It's brutal. I have to kiss her." Just like that, it was over. The quote spread fast. Whether it was meant as a joke or not didn't matter. Rhea Perlman heard about it. So did the producers. So did the writers. And just like that, Eddie Lebec, the happy-go-lucky husband and father of Carla's twins, was written off the show, permanently. How? Killed in a bizarre Zamboni accident during a hockey game. Off-screen. No funeral. Just a throwaway joke. Cold, petty, and final, exactly the kind of death you write when you're angry. Jay Thomas never returned to Cheers. He later confirmed in interviews that yes, the comment cost him the role, and possibly much more. He kept working, of course. He won 2 Emmys for playing Jerry Gold on Murphy Brown, had a recurring role on Ray Donovan, and became a Christmas fixture as the dad in the Santa Claus 2 and 3. He even returned to radio, where his storytelling remained legendary. But Hollywood never really forgave him. Or maybe, he never forgave Hollywood. In 2017, Jay Thomas died of cancer at the age of 69. He kept his diagnosis private until the very end, performing and recording right up until he couldn't anymore. He left behind a legacy of laughter, and a cautionary tale about ego, timing, and the brutal politics of comedy. Jay Thomas wasn't a bad guy. He was a comic. And comics push boundaries. But in Hollywood, one careless laugh can cost you everything. He came into Cheers as a punchline. And left the same way. But damn if he didn't make us laugh while he was there. Roger Rees, the charming villain with a vanishing goodbye. He wasn't part of the original gang. He didn't sling drinks, shout across the bar, or tell beer jokes. Roger Rees walked into Cheers like he didn't belong there, and that was exactly the point. As Robin Colcord, the arrogant British billionaire who dated Rebecca Howe, Rees gave Cheers something it had never seen before, class warfare in a 3-piece suit. He was smug. He was sophisticated. He was too good for this place, and yet, you couldn't stop watching him. He wasn't Sam. He wasn't lovable. But he was magnetic. Born May 5, 1944, in Wales, Roger Rees didn't come from money, though he played it like he did. He trained in classical theatre, became a star on the British stage, and won a Tony Award in 1982 for his lead performance in The Life and Adventures of Nicholas Nickleby. He wasn't a sitcom guy. He was a Shakespeare guy. But that's what made him perfect. In Cheers, he was the complete opposite of everything the bar stood for. While Sam polished glasses and cracked jokes, Robin schemed behind boardroom doors. While Carla threw insults, Robin dropped Shakespearean barbs. And while Rebecca Howe melted for him, repeatedly, the audience didn't know whether to root for him or hope he tripped over a barstool. And Rees owned it. He took a role that could have been one-dimensional and gave it edge. Timing. Restraint. He was charming without begging for attention, and that's rare in sitcoms. But just as quickly as he appeared, he faded out. After Cheers, Rees returned to his roots in theater. He directed. He taught. He gave TED Talks about storytelling. He occasionally appeared in American shows. You might remember him from The West Wing, where he played British Ambassador Lord John Marbury, stealing scenes like he was born to do it. What you might not know is that for years, Roger Rees was fighting a battle in silence. He was diagnosed with brain cancer in the early 2010s but chose to keep it private. He continued acting, continued working, right up until he physically couldn't. He passed away on July 10, 2015, at the age of 71, in New York City. There was no big headline. No splashy memorial. Just a quiet announcement, and the soft grieving of theater fans who remembered him best not as Rebecca's smug boyfriend, but as one of the greatest stage actors of his generation. In Cheers, Robin Colcord was a man who always thought he was the smartest in the room. In real life, Roger Rees probably was. But he never needed to say it. He just performed. He came from a different world. And when he left, the bar felt a little less sharp. A little less dangerous. And a lot less interesting. Conclusion, the bars closed, but the echoes remain. They came in through that creaky wooden door, misfits, romantics, loudmouths, dreamers. For 11 years, Cheers wasn't just a bar. It was a home. A sanctuary for the lost and the lonely, served cold with a beer and a one-liner. But when the lights went off, not everyone made it out. Nicholas Colasanto was the heart of the early seasons, Coach, the innocent soul in a cynical world. He didn't live to see the show become a legend. He died quietly, just as the world was learning to love him. Kirstie Alley stormed in like a hurricane, took over a dying series, and made it hers. But fame is cruel. And it chewed her up, with weight jokes, political backlash, and headlines that outlived the applause. J. Thomas made us laugh hard, and fell just as hard. One offhand comment, and he was out. Hollywood doesn't forgive easily, and for Jay, it never did. Roger Rees was the outsider, the intellectual, the man who didn't belong in the bar. But gave it a touch of class. Then he disappeared behind the curtain, losing his final role to a battle no one saw. These weren't just actors. They were the rhythm of the room. The ghosts in the laughter. And now, they're gone. No more callbacks. No more reunions. Just reruns and memories. Just theme songs and silence. But that's the thing about places like Cheers. They never truly close. Because as long as we remember, the laughs, the faces, the voices, they live on. So tonight, wherever you are, raise a glass. To Coach. To Rebecca. To Eddie. To Robin. The bar is empty. But the echoes still call your name.